Hello, the name is Osvaldo Nhaca, and welcome to another one of these little episodes and little videos where we just share some universal principles that you might apply in your life and hopefully it'll make a difference as well. So, today we're going to be talking about a principle that is taken from quantum mechanics or quantum physics. And we're going to see how this applies to human behavior as well as your personal life as well, how you can make use of it. The principle is called the observer effect. According to quantum physics or quantum mechanics, it's stated that in the observer effect, the thing that you observe changes according to how you see it and how you observe it. That means that whatever you observe has its own behavior inherent in it. But the moment you, as the observer, observe it in a different way, the behavior of that system is affected and it's changed. How does this apply to personal psychology? First, let's build it from specific building blocks. Every one of us has what is called a hierarchy of values. With these hierarchy of values, they stem from the thing that we perceive might be most missing to the thing that we have fulfilled in our lives. And throughout the ages in our lives, these hierarchy of values tend to shift and change. So perhaps you might find that when you were 5 to 6 years old, your highest value, your highest priority at that point in time was playing and having fun with your friends and going out, and just play was the most important thing. Then perhaps you turn 10, 12, or perhaps in your teenage years, then playing was not the most important thing, but schooling might have been the most important thing. Socializing or playing sports. And in that moment, that was the thing that was most important for you. And as the years went by, perhaps starting a family, making money, and all these goals then shifted, and that then became your highest priorities or your highest values. When we speak of these value structures, think of them as a ladder, steps of ladders that go from all the way down, all the way up, and all these steps from the highest all the way to the lowest, you have these things that you believe are most important to least important. For instance, if we look at and study the greats, they tend to know or discover their highest values from a very early age in life. They tend to awaken this and they tend to stick with it. I recently went through a biography by Kobe Bryant, and what you realize about Kobe Bryant is that he was highly focused and highly concentrated in a specific area. He awakened this and focused on that, and that became his primary driving force. So I can say that that became his highest priorities and his highest value. When he discovered basketball and decided that this is what's going to be my life, in that highest priority and that highest values, he organized his life to fulfill that. And the moment he decided that this is the thing that I'm going to fulfill and this is the thing that I'm going to mostly be concentrated on, all the other areas in his life went away. Or we could say that they became less important to him, and that single focus was what drove him. If you go throughout his timeline, you'll discover that everything he did and practiced was for the benefit of basketball. The books that he read, the movies that he watched, the documentaries that he went through was all based on fulfilling that highest priorities and highest values. Now, with some people, it tends to shift over time, where you find that perhaps at some point family was your highest priority. Then finances was your highest priority at some stage now because you made all your money. Now socializing became your highest priority and giving back to society. But in his particular case, and not only him, you find the same patterns with Lewis Hamilton. You find this with great sports people. You see it with Lionel Messi, you see it with Ronaldo, that these individuals tend to have one set of priority system that they tend to engage in throughout their whole life. Now, you can have some additionals to it. You can be a great basketball player and focus on that, but you're still building a family. Now, his was very highly concentrated. It was all about basketball. And because he lived that way, what got awakened in him is the sense of a mission, the sense of, I want to accomplish something that's greater that will outlive my own life. And the evidence of this is there. He would play through injuries. He would practice, although he won so many trophies. He would not give up when he lost. He played basketball for 20 years, and out of the 20 years, it was only 6 times that he won the major trophies. And that tells us that he was highly focused and highly concentrated on that. How do you apply this principle of the observer effect with human behavior in this hierarchy of values? Now, what tends to happen is throughout our whole life, we have these events that occur that sort of shape how we see it. And also, they also give us these emotional triggers or these emotional charges. And when I talk about emotional charges, I'm talking about these biases towards either infatuations or resentments with these events. Now, remember that throughout your whole life, you can find that your hierarchy of values have shifted and have started changing. And sometimes we call these midlife crises. This midlife crisis is just a simple shift of your hierarchy of values. And these changes happen due to 2 things, either a change of perception or an event that leads to you having to change your hierarchy of values. In the same instance you'll find with Kobe Bryant, there was a point in time when his life took a turn. He was headed towards being infamous for cheating and having different relationships. But the event that occurred got him to go back into his hierarchy of values, be like, no, I need to focus and get back on my mission. And if I focus and get back on my mission, I'm therefore going to accomplish the greatest of things. So that event led to him getting back his focus into that specific area. Now, we speak about different events that happen throughout our whole lives. And these events sometimes are life-shifting. Just think about any event that you had occurred in your life, whether it either be an extreme positive or an extreme negative. The moment you think about that event and you go back to that specific event, the when, the where, and the who. So in other words, go to that specific day where that event occurred. Where were you and what was happening in that specific event? And we're going to use the observer effect to actually bring balance to that specific event. And the moment we do this, not only does our perception of the actual event change, but how you react, and we see how it's connected to this higher purpose that you have in your current value systems actually changes. In cognitive behavioral therapy, there's something which is called the ABC. And with this ABC, it's a simple module that tells us that the A, you have the activating event. The activating event where something happened. Perhaps when you go back to your childhood or earlier years, perhaps at that specific moment you wanted to go outside and play. And your parents told you, no, you cannot go and play. You need to stay inside the house and do your homework. Then and then you get the B of the cognitive module where it tells you now it's the belief system. The belief system speaks to how you related to that event. Perhaps you believe that was something that was very negative. Perhaps your parents were putting you down when they said no to you. They were being dismissive. They were not respecting you. They were invading your life. And therefore, the consequence of that is you never got to fulfill the purpose that you wanted to fulfill. Or perhaps that was the defining moment that changed everything, which is then brings us to the C of the module, which is then the consequences. The consequences of that is that I'm now a frustrated person. I am now a person that doesn't want to get into relationships. And you find this most common in relationships when you find sometimes females, their belief system is all men are dogs, because of an activating event. Perhaps they dated someone and this person done something at a specific moment in time. The belief system now is all men are dogs. So that means that they've created a false universality towards something that is really not there. because of that specific event. And now the consequences is I don't want to get into a relationship when I pick up these red flags. How do we use the observer effect? In normal therapy is normally someone would come to you with an outcome and say, well, I'm in a position where I don't want to date anymore because I believe that this happened and I don't want to repeat that specific event because this is what happens to me. I have this emotional outburst or I have this emotional charges towards that event. And normal therapy would perhaps take that story, have you rerun that story, rerun it, and eventually try to change your belief system. There isn't anything wrong with that. But what I want us to do and what my challenge to you is to actually delve deeper beyond the belief system and actually go in there and change the event itself. Remember in the whole principle of the observer effect that the moment you change how you observe something, the actual thing that you're observing changes itself. So what we then do is I like to apply something which is called the DeMartini method. And with the DeMartini method, not only do we address the belief systems, but we actually go in detail to the actual event and bring out the awareness that you had towards that event. In other words, we bring out the other side, and the main objective of that is to bring balance to that so that you're not drawn towards either the negative or the positive, because anytime you're drawn towards the negative or the positive, you create that false bias that, oh, all events are this. And therefore, the consequences of that is you go into this seeking and avoidance state. Here's what we do is go into the specific event. Perhaps, let's say you were in a relationship and this relationship, the specific person dismissed you or didn't communicate the way that you wanted to at a specific time. You go into the specific event. Perhaps it was on a Friday, 1996. I was at home, I was on my phone. I texted and the person didn't text me back. Now, the belief system around that is that I received more harm than good. And therefore, that's what the belief system is. And the consequences of that is unless you communicate with me all the time or communicate with me in a specific way, I am not being loved. That's the one-sidedness. What we want to do with that, in that specific event itself, at that specific moment, we want to add the benefits to it. And how we add the benefits to it is we see at the moment that the person didn't communicate with you, how did that serve you and your highest purpose and your highest values? Perhaps when the person didn't speak to you, you had to then go out and seek advice from someone. The person that you seeked advice from is the very person that became your close friend. Therefore, you opened up and you expanded your social circle. And because you opened up and expanded your social circle, the consequences of that were that you're able to speak to somebody else, get a different view, and in getting that different view, you widened your mental aspect of it. And what were the other benefits to that? Perhaps the other benefits to that is because of that, you became very close friends with that person. And you also learned that you shouldn't put this person on a pedestal, because the more you put someone on a pedestal is the more you put yourself down. That's the whole balancing act that goes on that we can't get rid of. And you not putting that person on a pedestal meant that you could get back to your life. And in getting back to your life, trace from that event on until today what the consequences of those benefits were. You might find that because of that specific event, it led to you meeting other people, making specific career choices that led to you having a fulfilled life at the specific moment. That's how you do it if you're perceiving that that event was highly negatively charged. What if it's the opposite? Well, if it's the opposite, you go back into the specific event. Perhaps, again, you were in that relationship and this person wowed you, showered you with gifts, and spoke in your love language at that specific moment. What you want to do is to bring balance to that event by asking yourself is, what were the drawbacks of that specific action that the person demonstrated towards you. Perhaps because they spoke in your love language, you became infatuated with them. And the moment you became infatuated with them, you put a halt in your life because now you felt that that relationship now is the most important part. Then therefore, the opposite of what would have happened on the negatives is now you didn't reach out to other people, you didn't grow your social circle. And because of that, this person now became the most priority in your life. And you believe that this person would now serve you and be with you and just make you happy at that time. Now, what will happen is if you stack up enough drawbacks to the benefit and enough benefits to the negatives, what you'll find is how you experience your own life timeline would actually change, because now you're not seeing one side without the other. Because now you're having this balanced view, what will happen is it also will affect your actual experience of your own life timeline. You'll actually see and come to the point where the present of today couldn't have been any other way. By not only challenging your belief system, but actually balancing out the moments of that event, where the cause equals to effect. Once you bring that together, what will happen now is you're going to be more poised and you're going to be more grateful for what happens in the present moment. But again, remember, this is just one aspect of the actual DeMartini method. There are about 14 questions that we can ask around that specific event and all other events that mirror the same event. Because it's not just one event, it's other events that mirrored that belief structure and that belief system. And now by holding on to that belief system, you had all these events that accumulated and got you to experience life in a specific way. But of course, with the whole 14 question process, we're able to go in depth into the different events and and as well as the mirror events that are sort of like a shadow representation of that main event. And by doing that and by bringing balance to that specific events in your life, you'll be more poised, you'll be more grateful, and you'll actually be more loving. You're going to come from a state of that unconditional love. And you're actually going to see how those events helped you not only to change your value structures, but also helped you to get a more fulfilled life, where you are not only fulfilled in a sense in your social life, but you're more fulfilled in your financial life, your spiritual life, your mental life, your vocational life, as well as your physical life, and all these other 7 areas of your life where you are now more empowered because of these specific events. With using the observer effect principle, not only are you able to go back in time and see yourself differently, you're actually able to change how you relate to the world. Because the moment you're more poised on the inside, the outside world itself changes and will also become poised. Because the outside world is nothing but a reflection of the inner observer that's observing the outside world. And remember that anything that you can't look at with love and be thankful for it or be grateful for it becomes baggage. And that baggage is something that you carry with you and becomes heavy, and you become emotionally biased in wanting to avoid pains of pleasures. So go in those events and find the things that you can be grateful for all these events that have occurred in your life. And just remember that whole wheel of the ABCs that we use in cognitive behavioral therapy, that you look at the A, the activating event, and then the B, the belief systems that go around what you believed in happening in those events. Then look at the consequences. Look at the consequences. Okay, well, this is where I am now. This is where it is. And what led to that is you'll find that it's your belief system and then the events. The best way to bring balance to it is by balancing out the actual events itself. Not only changing the belief system, but by going into the actual events and bringing balance to those events. Thank you.